I think I really appreciate your question about what can people do and what are people's rights. And I just wanted to say that, you know, all these historical movements to gin up hatred against people is to give some people political advantage. And I think one thing that all of us can do is we can make sure that our leaders and politicians know that it's not working, that they are not making us hate each other, and that we object to that. And I think that that's something, so there are very complicated things that constitutional lawyers, we need them to do that. But there are things that all of us can do, and we can get on the phone and we can call our representatives, whether they are you know, on the right side or not. And we
have in San Jose is our failure to connect with each other, to have a larger voice and a stronger impact on the occurrences that are to come. Because we really do have to organize to be prepared for what I think will be a further onslaught of degradation from this administration. I'm really glad that Tom and Professor Balderrama brought us together with this very important historical event. But it just reminds us once again that history has repeated itself over and over again, and that the times are so much more difficult and so much more complex today than they ever were in the past. We could organize in the past and get things done, but it's harder now with all of the outlets, social media that's available, and the kinds of coverage and the kinds of medium that are available. It really is going to take people power to organize in really effective ways so that the right hand knows what the left hand is doing. Unfortunately, for those of us in the Latino community, we don't have any political institutions to speak of other than one organization called La Raza Roundtable. But in order to unite with other forces, which I think is what we have to do, occasions like today that link us to groups that are going to continue the work of unity and resistance, it's essential that we find mechanisms by which we can alert each other, let each other know what's going on, and be available to protest and to resist as many places and as often as is necessary. Because our work is going to be ongoing for an indefinite period of time, and the more we can rely on each other, as you said, and to unify, the better off we're going to be, and our voices certainly are going to be used to hold our own elected officials accountable, to stand up and speak loudly and clearly. I know that in San Jose, our city council as well as our board of supervisors have already enacted policies that resist and that do not allow their law enforcement personnel to be of assistance to ICE. But that's only one small part of what has to be done. And I think the bigger part that it is incumbent upon us to try to explore further is to have people like from the Republican Party understand this history that is now being repeated by the person that they elected into office, and that we should try to unify those forces to understand the damage that is being done by this country, by this administration, and to try to seek allies from unlikely sources, like the Republican Party, to understand about the Japanese internment and certainly about what happened to the Mexicans who were deported in the 1930s. But I think we can do it. We've done it before, and we can do it again.
Something from Blanca Alvarado, so I think she knows what she's talking about. Right? Was there one more question? Maybe we could just take one more question and we have some announcements.
Yeah, I just wanted to commend the two young scholars in the front and thank Dr. Balderrama. Great presentation. I just had a question if any of you could speak to, I guess I would call it, I mean, in the Japanese American community, we understand it as the myth of the model minority, right? But I think so. I'm mixed Chicano and Japanese American, and I think like I kind of experienced this on both ends, and hearing. You know, I'm also a former Anza student, graduated from Cal, and I always get, sometimes, you know, from like white coworkers or somebody will be like, oh, you're like that good, that educated Mexican, or of course you went to Cal because you're Japanese and Asians, you know, there's a lot of Asians at Cal. So it's, you know, this myth of meritocracy, and somehow if you're a minority, in order to be valid in the eyes of the dominant culture, or to be treated fair like a person, you have to, you know, you have to be educated, you have to be a good model citizen. And you know, to be honest, like you know, my father has had issues, you know, in and out of the penitentiary system and stuff like that. And it's something that, you know, like when people think, you know, look at me and see the stereotype that they want to see, they wouldn't associate, you know, like my past or my upbringing with that. And of course, like I don't, you know, in a work setting, I wouldn't bring that up, but it bothers me that, you know, just because I have an education, or just because, you know, you're a DACA recipient, doesn't, you know, what does that mean for everybody else if you have, you know, if you're a Muslim, you have a history with the criminal justice system, or you're undocumented, you have a, you know, history with the criminal justice system. You know, I was listening to Trump in one of his speeches in this, one of his statements this past week, talking specifically about DACA and saying, I forget exactly what his words were, but it was somewhere along the lines that, you know, yes, DACA is a complicated, you know, situation, something dear to his heart, whatever. But that, you know, that these are really good kids. This is complicated because there's really good kids, but then there's also gangbangers and drug dealers. And you know, like that's a very stereotyped, problematic trope that he's coming out with. Like that, I just wondered if, you know, if any of you could just speak to your thoughts on that issue, and like how, you know, what is your advice for us on how we can address, you know, when we're in situations like that and people come up with comments, you know, how when we go out, you know, and involve ourselves in activist movements, like how do we not just perpetuate stereotypes about ourselves and our communities, but how do we, you know, bring everybody with us, and those who I guess are most vulnerable?
I'll take a stab at it. It's late. Last question, and I'll try to make some sense. I'm thinking of a colleague as you shared your experience. A colleague of mine that I was teaching with, and the colleague was sharing with me that he's the only one in his family that is documented. And so he's the youngest in the family, and older brothers got involved in criminal activities. They end up in jail. And you know, the Obama administration, we got the horror today, but the Obama administration was also, you know, it was highest deportations. You know, so he's got brothers, okay, that were, you know, deported to Mexico, raised in the United States, and tried to adjust to living in Mexico, and it's no vacation. Trying to adjust to that, and I think it's part of the complexity of American society. Although we know that our jails are black and brown, and we know that as a fact, okay? And it says a lot about our schooling system and all the social problems that we have. But we are a diverse society. And, you know, and I think people, all of us, myself included, as you look at somebody, there's more than what meets the eyes. And we are much more a society that's multi-ethnic families, multiracial families. And so I think it's just, we just have to, you know, be more open as we deal with people with their different historical experiences. And they're, you know, the stereotyping is always there. You know, for some, a Mexican means gang member, okay? Oh, you're a good Mexican. Oh, you don't look Mexican. Oh, yeah. You look Italian. It's supposed to be a compliment, I guess. You know? You know, so I mean, we're going to have to deal with that. We have a lot of education to do.
I'm going to give you want to say something?
Yeah, when you're talking, I was really relating to that. And I just say, like you said, what do you do? Just keep proving them wrong. I think that's like all you can do, because you're not here to be breaking stereotypes. If you are a stereotype, you're a stereotype. If you're not, you're not. Like, you're here to be a person. You're here to live and do what you need to do. You're not here to, you don't need to justify or explain yourself to anybody, because you're just living the way you have to live. And I think for me, like, because I physically have something that doesn't allow me to even have a first impression, doesn't allow me to have an identity, and that's something I struggled with because I started wearing hijab when I was young. And it's like these people have perceptions of you before you say hello. But then I look at, and I was struggling with that for a long time, but then it's like the whole time when I heard everyone talking, like the whole time I was thinking, when I'm up here and I'm looking at this audience, I'm sure all of you have had stereotypes against you. I'm sure there's perceptions against all of you, but I come up here and I'm sitting here and I'm emotional, and I'm feeling honored, I'm feeling proud to be in a room of strength and a room of bravery, because there's stories in this room. And those all came from, and there was stereotypes put on each of these people, but they're proving them wrong. And you sitting right there, you're proving people wrong. And so all you can do is be a person, because that's all that you have to do. You don't have to prove anyone anything, you don't owe anybody anything, and you don't have to justify anything. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I also relate, being light-skinned, I always get told, when I tell people I'm undocumented, they're like, "What? I thought you were white. I thought you were American." And I'm like, "No, I was born in Mexico." And one thing I've learned, like I said in my women's studies classes, right now what the Trump administration is trying to do is not only create a us versus them narrative, but he's also trying to pity us against each other in our own communities. For example, he's creating the good immigrants versus the bad immigrants, and we can't be oppressors either. We can't internalize that racism that he is trying to perpetuate in our ideology. So yeah, that's all I can say. But I thought about my professor, like, oh, I gotta say this.
Well, what I'd like to do now is if we can all give a round of applause for our guest speakers. We have some gifts here to show our gratitude to our guest speakers, that you're not going to get rich and famous doing this.
They're already famous.
They are famous. Balderrama. This is on behalf of the Japanese American Museum, and I hope I got this right. There are some gift certificates in there, right there, and cards, which we carefully did not mark up so you can use them again. And then, so thank you again. And I think, Michael, did you want to make an announcement real quick?
Hey, let's give them a big round of applause. Somebody brought this up, and this is a great platform. I know a lot of you have been here, but if you haven't been here recently, please go downstairs. We'll keep the gallery open for about 15 minutes or so. It's getting late, and we're 100% run by volunteers. So we want to go home and get some dinner. So after this, I encourage you guys to go downstairs. But before you do that, this event is coming up on Sunday. If you don't know about it, you've got to check it out. This is the Day of Remembrance. It's going to be at the Buddhist Church here in the Japantown community. So check that out, take a snapshot of it, Google it, you'll find out more about this. But it's this coming Sunday, 5:30 to 7:30 at the Buddhist Church, so check it out. Again, you show your support and force, right? So this is part of that taking the action. Don't just sit on your laurels, right? Do something about it. The other thing about this is a museum not just for the JAs, the Japanese Americans, but it's really for the community. And so we made this complimentary tonight in the hopes that you'll come back, but bring your friends. Because if you don't know about it, or if you've not heard about it, there's a good chance your friends don't know about it either. So we encourage you to come back, bring your friends, and then have them tell their friends. And also, look us up on Facebook. So we're on Facebook, like us on Facebook, and get us out there, please. If you aren't already on our likes page, do that, please. I want to talk to you about a couple of things. Dwayne Kubo here is from the Japantown Community TV. Thank you, Dwayne, for filming this.